So I learned something very interesting about goals, goal setting and achieving those goals. I did a fun little project with my sister, and thanks to my other sister for the great idea. And this is a goal bingo board. You draw a bingo board and you write goals in every square. 25 goals minus 1 because you have a free square in the middle. So at first when I heard this idea, I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's just like a fun way to write goals, right? And then when I actually sat down to make it, as my sister said, you only need to complete 5 of them, right? You don't have to complete the entire board. You only need 5 across and then you win. You get bingo. So I realized that part of the reason I didn't have bigger goals, which actually I still wrote my 3 big goals that I mentioned in my last goal video, but I think with knowing that I don't have to complete everything, and it's kind of like a dream board, it's not like, oh, if I write it down then and I don't complete it, it's just gonna suck horribly. It's more like, no, this is fun. If I get if I get bingo, then I will have succeeded at my goals for the year. And I purposely put my goals a little spread out so that the big one, there has to be at least one big one in every bingo, basically is kind of what I did. But yeah, I realized that I wasn't letting my mind go as far as it could have when I first wrote my goals because I was, worried that I maybe wasn't going to complete everything. So with this bingo board now, my mind was able to just run free, imagine the possibilities, and plus it takes a lot to actually write 24 goals. People always say, make 3 big goals, or focus on one thing at a time, or just don't overwhelm yourself with so many things. And again, technically I only need to complete 4 out of 24 because if I use the middle free square, then so this is sort of a 4 to 5 goal plan. And if I do complete more things on the board, that's great. And I believe I will. I'm sure I will. Okay, so I might make some of these goals into separate videos, just talking about them and kind of sharing my experience and my journey. Like my handstand picture is definitely a journey. I have been documenting that. And then if I do end up starting that house build this year, that's definitely going to be videos. But okay, so that's one thing about goals. You have to do something to let your mind wander and dream bigger than you have before. Or, some people are huge dreamers already. I was taught about goals from a young age, and we were taught to, SMART goals, SMART, and they have to be achievable or attainable within reason. And anyway, I was a very logical, realistic, and I still am. I'm very logical, very realistic, and it sometimes gets in the way of dreaming and having goals. So that's one thing. If you can make it fun, let yourself dream. Okay. Release the pressure. Take the pressure off. I don't have to finish everything. I can just do a few. And then the last thing that I found extremely interesting about goals, this was a mind boggler for me. I was like, wow, I can't believe I am finally realizing this, for real realizing it. People always say, write down your goals. It's good for you. It's better you'll be more likely to achieve them, whatever. Also, they say share them with people. If you tell people about your goals, you're going to work towards it harder, whatever. Okay. I was listening to a podcast, what do you know, on my road trip recently, and it was actually about creativity. It was about growing on YouTube. It was about thumbnails and titles for your videos and getting people to click, because basically on YouTube, the first rule is get someone to click, because if somebody doesn't click, you're not going to get views, you're not going to get nothing. It's going to be crickets. Are you ready for this? So science says, and the brain says, and evolution says, and all these studies say that the brain loves a challenge and loves to close the loop. So if you see an open loop somewhere, your brain works and works at closing it. And it will keep on working at it until it closes that loop. And so things that we find interesting are oftentimes on YouTube, I guess I'm specifically saying, like when you see a title, or even in a magazine or newspaper or wherever you see titles that are purposefully attention grabbers, or like on a website, the people that are getting the most traffic and writing the best headlines that get the most interest are the ones that have an open loop. So for an example, I'm getting to the goals, don't worry, I'm getting there, but it's just, hear me out. So for an example, that on the podcast, these people are talking about a couple of celebrities that have recently gotten onto YouTube. And they just think, I'm a celebrity, everyone's going to watch my videos, it doesn't matter what I put as a title. The thing is, what's his name? Shoot. He gave Tom Brady as an example, and also, I can't remember the better example I wanted to use. Imagine a celebrity that you like, or don't like, and their title says, for example, Tom Brady. It wasn't Tom Brady, but somebody. Tom Brady spends 24 hours in Spain. Okay, Tom Brady in Spain, 24 hours, cool. Like, doesn't really call that much attention, does it? So in the video, actually, apparently he was challenging like really great soccer players to a game. If I'm getting the details wrong, it doesn't matter. This is, I will illustrate the point. So a much more interesting title would actually be Tom Brady challenges professional soccer players to a match. That creates an open loop. It's like, oh, is he good at soccer? And he's challenging professional people to play? And obviously, if you're not like super interested in Tom Brady or in soccer, then it doesn't matter as much. But still, like, even for me, it's kind of like, oh, a celebrity challenging some professional sports, like, I don't know, could be interesting. But for me, like, not interested in celebrity lives, or like really, spending 24 hours in Spain, that doesn't sound that interesting. But if I see that he's challenging people, blah, 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 it's way more interesting to somebody like me who's just like passing by. So it's just a matter of creating an open loop. So people always say, create titles that are interesting, that pique interest, but they never really say why or what works or whatever. Now I learned that it is the open loop concept, and I've heard of the brain wanting to close loops before. I've heard a lot about closing the loop, but I never put two and two together and put it onto YouTube video titles or goals. So the thing about writing down a goal is that as soon as you write it, your brain starts trying to figure out, how can I do that? Because it's no longer floating around in your brain like, oh, that's just a pipe dream. Like, that's the back burner. I'm not even going to worry about that or think about that right now. It's written down, especially on a bingo board. It's like, this is a game. I want to complete the game. I want to win the game. And I am not at all a competitive person. I could care less if I win games. I'm just here to play and enjoy. So this is very interesting for me. I wrote these down. As I was writing them, I was kind of like, blah, blah, blah. It's whatever. I'll finish it or I'll not. I'm just writing goals that I know I want. And some of them I know easily achievable. And some of them are a little bit of a stretch. And several of them are sort of like clashing with each other because, for example, if I spend money on building a house, then I'm probably not going to spend money on buying a van. But who knows? You never know. Things could happen. So after I wrote down my bingo board and I realized like, oh, that's what people mean. My brain wants to close the loop. It wants to complete these things. And it's just constantly like, everything I'm doing now, I'm like, oh, does this person have a pottery wheel? Does this art studio have a pottery wheel? Is there anybody local who has one? And then as soon as I tell someone, like I shared this with my sisters, one of my sisters is like, hey, our cousin has a pottery wheel. She might let you use it. I'm like, sweet. That's why write them down. Your brain wants to close the loop and tell people, because you start opening up connections. Oh my gosh. You guys, I'm talking to my like yesterday self, like the day before I wrote this bingo board self, because I seriously this stuff did not compute in my brain. And now I'm like, obviously. Come on, you should have wrote these down forever ago. Okay, I did write goals. I've written goals many times, but oh my gosh. Okay, so after I finished my bingo board, I wrote down a whole list of steps to complete those goals. So as soon as I wrote them down, I was just like, how can I do this? What can I do? What's the next step I can take? I need to start crossing these things off. And so I wrote down a list of small steps to take. And honestly, several of the things on my list are like sit down and plan something. So that's very, very low bar of entry, very low action step. But seriously, once you start to plan things, then you're like, oh, makes it that much easier to actually execute. So, okay, I was going to talk a little further about actually action steps for me at this point, but I think this rant was going on a lot longer than I expected it to. So I don't know, I hesitate to cut an idea into multiple videos because sometimes people are like, oh, we already saw this. We don't need to watch another video about this. But sometimes it's interesting. So, I don't know. Comment below if you like goal videos and if you'd be interested in seeing sort of my action plan to complete goals. This was a huge epiphany. I hope this helps you. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.